Well, hello out there. I'm T.M. Brown, and welcome to the next reading from my very first book, A Life Not My Own. I'm excited as I was at the very beginning for you to follow me on this journey as I read my first book to you. My intent is to share more than you'd experience if you read the story on your own, and you may decide that you want to read along with me. So feel free to grab a copy of my book, A Life Not My Own, from my website, www.authortmbrown.com. We started at the very first page of the book, and we're going to work our way through the entire book. We are currently on page 76. Are you ready? Are you sure? He said. Things are pretty good with us now. I know I haven't treated you right in the past, but things are better now, aren't they? You don't have to do this. I'll stop using this shit. We can stay away from Fairfield. I can take care of you. Tina, you don't have to do this, he pleaded. Yes, I do, I said. You know that. Things will be okay with us for a while and then go right back to the way they've been. You really don't need to be responsible for me, I said. I have to learn to take care of myself. I really don't want to do this. I just don't see any other way. You've been everything to me. You've taken care of me for years. It's strange how close we are and how much I hate the life that we have now. There's no future for us, baby, I said. I am hoping that somehow my going away will give you the time you need to get yourself together, and maybe, just maybe, we can find our way back together again. His eyes were full of tears. Things will never be the same with us again. You know that, don't you? He said. You'll be traveling all over the world, and you'll meet some guy and forget all about what we've had together. Do you want that, Tina? He asked. I was crying now, too. There is just no way that I could ever forget what we've had together. You've made me happier, and I've been happier with you than I've ever been in my entire life. No one will ever know me, understand me, or make me feel the way that you do. But I have to go. It has to be this way, I said. After our talk, he began returning home from work later and later. Most of the time when he returned, he was high. He always had the same response. Why do you care? You're leaving anyway, he'd say. Eventually, things got so bad that an eviction notice was placed on the apartment door. I thought that he was paying the rent, but I was wrong. Now that I think back on it, I don't know why I thought he was paying the rent. This seemed to be his way of doing things for all the other apartments that we had lived in, so I don't know why I thought he was paying the rent then. I wasn't about to be humiliated by watching our belongings being thrown out on the street. So it was August, with only 2 months before I was to leave to go into the Army, and I decided to call Mom. It was one of the hardest things that I had to do. Here I am, I'm a grown woman. I'm going back and forth in and out of my grandmother's house, can't seem to get myself together. But Mama always seemed to understand. Girl, don't even worry about it. You can always come home, but I don't want to see him around here. I know you love him. Even a blind man can see that. You just come on home, she said. So I packed my bags and left. I didn't hear from him for almost a month. Tina, are you going to avoid me for the rest of your time here? He said. You're going to be leaving in 3 weeks. We need to talk. I'm on my way over there, he said. No, I'll meet you at the school. I didn't want him causing problems for Ma and me. We were already having problems. You know it's hard living with your mother when you've been out on your own. I knew he was living at his father's house again. I wasn't sure what he had done about moving our furniture out of the apartment. And really, because I left so abruptly, I didn't think I had any right to ask. But here we were again. me in my mid-20s and him in his 30s, living at our parents' house and pretending to be adults. I couldn't wait to end this. Not that I didn't still love him, because I did still love him, but I did not want to live like this anymore. I wanted more. I had dreamed of much more than this for the two of us, but it just didn't work. So, what are we going to do now that you're going into the Army, he said. I really don't know. Everything is a mess right now. I think that we should just take it slow. I couldn't even believe that I was actually saying that to him. I have 8 weeks of basic training and then something called AIT. I don't know where I'll end up. Maybe we can take this time to figure out what we both want. I am going to miss you so much, Tina, he said. I think that you are doing the right thing, but I don't know what will happen to us, he said. We've been through a lot. Remember when we first started seeing each other, we said that we would never be selfish and would always look out for one another. Yes, I remember that, he said as he held me. Well, I think it's time for us to do that. I knew that I would be all right wherever I went, but I was sure that what he and I had was ending. We continued to see one another until the day I left. The recruiter pulled up in front of Ma's house on October 26, 1986, and changed my life. I said goodbye to Sharon, Ma, and Lucille, and he was standing outside the front door. I don't know what to say. I have loved you with all my heart for what seems like forever. This is so hard for me to do. I can't say goodbye to you. I still love you and I want us to be together. I said, I'll be here when you get back, okay? He kissed me and whispered in my ear, always. I got in the recruiter's car and watched him through the rearview mirror until he was out of sight. So now we're going to begin the next chapter called Basic Training. There were so many people at the reception station at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I was sure that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I felt totally alone. The barracks consist of rows and rows of metal bunk beds. Everything smelled so impersonal and medicinal. What in the world had I done? It was 5:30 in the morning and we were being marched, although none of us truly knew how to march, to the dining facility. Soldiers in green uniforms were cutting in line in front of us, and everyone was in a hurry. We were told that we had 15 minutes to eat and be lined up outside. The food was horrible. Powdered eggs, thick slices of processed ham, and milk that sort of tastes funny. Damn, this is just as bad as when I lived with Betty, I thought. As we walked to the various stations to receive our uniforms, boots, and supplies, I couldn't help but notice how beautiful the sky was. It looked like a postcard, full of soft, white clouds and a background of baby blue. I tried to concentrate on that. I was given the rank of private first class as a result of being a college graduate. And it was a big deal, but along with the rank came responsibilities. I was required to do more than the other soldiers and display leadership abilities by ordering the soldiers to do things like clean latrines, that was the bathrooms, make their beds correctly. I was surprised at how many people didn't know how to make up a bed, shine their boots, and just basically be wherever we were supposed to be. This was hard because I was learning at the same time that I was expected to lead them. My day usually started at 5 o'clock in the morning. There was no alarm clock. The drill sergeants would enter the barracks and turn on the lights. We were expected to respond to the lights being turned down by washing, dressing, and running downstairs for the morning formation and roll call. The days that pass usually consist of marching, calling cadence, firing weapons, and physical fitness training. I was happy that Mac had given me the extra money to buy good running shoes. I ran more in those few weeks than I had ever run in my entire life. After a few weeks, the basic training schedule became a routine that I was relatively comfortable with. I knew what was expected of me and had no problems complying. I was making friends with female soldiers from all over the United States. And you have to remember that in 1986, when I went into the military, the male and female soldiers, they were basically separate in terms of training. We slept in different buildings. We trained, the females trained together and the males trained together. It was very separate in 1986. And all of my female soldier friends had a story to tell about how they ended up in the Army. Some of the stories weren't that different from my own. I had my 26th birthday in basic training. The girls sang to me in the barracks to celebrate my birthday. It was a really nice gesture. I received a card from Sherm, but nothing from him. In fact, I received very little mail from anyone else while I was in basic training. Mac, he only wrote me once, and he was asking for money. Shortly before I had entered the military, Mac was hit by a car while crossing the street near my aunt's house. Rumor had it that he was so high when the car hit him that the doctors weren't sure he knew what had happened. He received a large sum of money as a result of the accident. He wasted the money on drugs and his so-called friends. He sent me the money. I sent him the money that he asked for, and he never wrote me again. Finally, it was basic training graduation day, and I had invited everyone to attend. We marched in the cold morning air into the auditorium for the commencement ceremonies. All the guests were sitting on the bleachers in front of us. I had made it. Basic training was over, and I was on my way to advanced individual training, also called AIT. There were 2 other soldiers who were graduating and scheduled to attend the same AIT course as I was at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. One of the soldiers was originally from Dover, Delaware, and we decided to take the train from Columbia, South Carolina to our hometowns. Riding the train was so much fun. We drank and played cards. I had never ridden on a train before. I stared out the rail car window, thinking about all the things that I had experienced for the first time over the last few weeks. I had been on an airplane and on a train, gone further south than I had ever been, met people from all over the United States, fired a rifle and a machine gun, threw a hand grenade, and run 2 miles in less than 16 minutes. Still, I felt that something was missing. It was still all about him. Would he be there to greet me at the train station in Baltimore? Well, in 15 minutes, I'd know. Turns out, no one was there to greet me at the station when I arrived. I called Ma, to let her know I was in Baltimore, and caught a cab from the train station to her house, a very expensive cab ride. Everyone was waiting for me there, except for him. Kern, one of my oldest friends, was there. It was so nice to see her. So what's been up while I was gone, I said. What I was really asking was whether she knew anything about him. I guess she knew that. He's been seeing this skinny little crack addict. She knows you're coming home. She's probably trying to keep him away from you. Hey, you want to go to the bar and have a few drinks? Girl, don't even worry about it. You ain't going to be home that long. Have a good time, she said. She was right. I wasn't going to spend the few days that I had at home worrying about him. I had been away for weeks. I wanted everyone to see that I was doing just fine. He wasn't going to hold me down any longer. Well, he was the first person that I saw as I entered the bar. He didn't look like himself. He looked tired and nervous. I think he knew that Karen had told me everything. I walked right over to him. "Hey, how was your trip?" he said nervously. "Can we step outside for a moment?" I asked. "Yeah, we can sit in my car," he said proudly. When did he get a car? I thought as we walked out the door with everyone looking at us. "Why didn't you write me? I thought we said we'd keep in touch. Instead, I find out that you're running around with some woman while I'm down there crawling around in the mud. What's up with that?" "Hey, what do you expect? You left me." "You know why I left. I had to leave." "Oh, so now you had to leave. Was I that bad to you?" he asked. I didn't even answer. I didn't want to argue with him. I had been away for weeks. Now that he was standing in front of me, I couldn't think. All I wanted to do was to be with him. That still hadn't changed. He looked so tired. In the past, he had dressed so well. Now he looked like someone I didn't know. His hair was thinning on top of his head. His pants looked dirty, and he seemed tired. I placed my hand on his face. "What have you been doing?" "I'm home for just 2 weeks." What are we going to do? Do you want to be with me or not? Does she mean anything to you?" "She's a very nice lady, and I like her a lot, but I want to be with you," he said as he touched my hand. "Then let's get out of here." I had forgotten all about Karen. Between spending time with him and celebrating the Christmas holidays with my family, I had a wonderful 2 weeks. It all went so quickly. But what was I going to do? I had to leave. I wanted to leave, but I wanted him too. He drove me to the train station and waited as the train stopped for me to board. Following me to my seat, we said goodbye once again. He was right. I was leaving him. I felt selfish, but I knew I couldn't stay with him. So now we're in the chapter called Army Life. I had never seen the snow accumulate as quickly as it did while I was stationed at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. We'd catch the bus to school in the morning, only to return within a few hours because the roads had become impassable. My time there was one big party. After the first week, we could come and go as we pleased. And this was really my first taste of freedom since I left Baltimore. My friends and I would frequent the NCO club and dance the night away. I was attending AIT to become a personnel management specialist. That's a 75 Charlie. I found the classes interesting and the coursework challenging. The soldiers in my class were very close. We were all excited about finding out where we would be permanently stationed after graduation. We all knew that we could be stationed anywhere in the world, and that was really exciting. The preliminary permanent duty station list was passed out in class 2 weeks before we were scheduled to graduate. I had been assigned to 101st Airborne Division Air Assault at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was promoted to the rank of Specialist E4 2 days before I was scheduled to leave AIT. My college degree was opening doors that were closed to me in the civilian world back in Baltimore. Now, readers, I want you to know that there's more to this story in terms of AIT and crazy decisions that I made during that time frame. And you can find more of the story in an anthology that I contributed to writing with 5 other authors, 5 other amazing authors in a free anthology called Just Between Us, Inspiring Stories by Women. My story is called Tina, and it is a continuation of A Life Not My Own. You know, when I wrote A Life Not My Own, there were still things about my past that I had not shared with my immediate family. Since the publishing of A Life Not My Own, lots have changed. A lot of things have changed in my life, and I was able to share even more of my past, and that you will find that captured in Just Between Us, Inspiring Stories by Women, a free download on Amazon.com. And I'll just leave it at that. I hope that you are intrigued to get that anthology, and I think you will enjoy my story as well as the other stories, the other inspiring stories included in that anthology. So I'll continue in the chapter Army Life. My dream of continuing my relationship with him was over. The distance between us was just too great. He had already formed a relationship with someone else. He hadn't called me once while I was in Indiana. The distance between us was giving me the space that I needed to see him as he really was. To me, it seemed that he was just as insecure as I had been. I guess I was just too far away to give him the constant attention that he required. The thought of trying to have a relationship with me in Kentucky and him in Baltimore seemed pretty ridiculous now. I decided not to go home for AIT and caught the bus from Indiana to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. My first impression of Fort Campbell was, what in the world have I done? The temporary barracks were dark and dingy. Now, barracks back in 1986 were, the old World War II barracks, the metal barracks where you could see from the front to the back door. I could smell the latrines from the front door. Man, it was gross. If my permanent duty station was anything like this, I'll be trying to find a way to get out of this assignment immediately, I thought. So I think I'll end today's reading there. There's so much more to my story that I want to share with you guys, and I hope that you will continue to meet me here at Spreaker.com to hear more of A Life Not My Own. I hope that you will consider picking up a copy of the book to have on your own, and also consider getting some of my other stories, such as Struggles of the Women Folk and Tethered Angel. And don't forget to pick up Just Between Us, Inspiring Stories by Women. Have yourself a good day, everyone, and we'll have another reading very soon. Take care.